All right, it's September 25th, and let me tell you, things are really starting to heat up in the Bay of Bengal. There's a pretty complex chain of weather events getting started, and in the next few minutes, we're going to break down exactly what that means for everyone on the coast and even further inland.
So, what's the deal? What's really brewing out there in the Bay? And more importantly, how's it going to affect us back here on land? Let's dive right in.
Okay, so to really understand what's coming our way, we've got to look way out to sea. I mean, that's where this whole story begins, and it's all being driven by a few major things happening in the atmosphere.
All right, think of this like a play with three main characters on the stage. First, you've got the weakening Typhoon Ragasa over in the South China Sea, but the two we really need to keep our eyes on, they're right here in the Bay of Bengal. We're talking about two separate circulations, one hanging out near the Odisha, Andhra coast, and the other over by the coast of Myanmar.
Now you're probably thinking, why is all of this happening right now? Right? Well, the culprit is something called an equatorial Rossby waves. The easiest way to think about it is like this giant, slow-moving pulse in the atmosphere, kind of hanging out near the equator. And it's basically setting the stage, creating the perfect conditions for these rain-making systems to just pop up, one after another.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. These two swirls of weather, they're not just going to stay apart. Nope, they are on a direct collision course, and when they finally meet up, they're expected to form something a whole lot stronger.
You can almost watch the life cycle of this storm unfold in four simple steps. So first, those two circulations we talked about. They merge. That creates a big, low-pressure area. Then, as that system gets more organized and starts pulling in energy from the warm water, it intensifies into what we call a depression. And from there, it starts its journey west, right towards the coast, heading for landfall. And listen, this isn't some slow-moving thing. It's happening fast. We're expecting that initial merger into a low-pressure area to happen tonight. Then, just a few hours later, by tomorrow morning, it's forecast to ramp up into a full-on depression. That gives it about a day to cross the bay before it hits land, probably somewhere between Odisha and Visakhapatnam.
So once this system hits the coast, its job is far from over. It's going to push inland, and you know what that means? It's going to dump a whole lot of rain across several states in the southern peninsula.
But for today, right now, there is one place that's the absolute center of attention. The hotspot, where all that atmospheric energy is converging, is Andhra Pradesh. No question.
So if you look at the forecast, you can see these really targeted impact zones. A ton of that moisture from the system is going to get funneled right over the central districts of Andhra. We're talking heavy, maybe even very heavy rain. And as it moves west, that rain band is going to shift right into eastern Telangana, and yeah, that includes major cities like Hyderabad.
And this moisture isn't stopping there. It's got enough punch to push all the way across to the western coast. So Karnataka is looking at widespread rain, which, hey, is actually great news for the Kaveri catchment areas. They really need it. And then down south, Kerala's central and southern districts are also in for some pretty heavy showers.
Okay, so we've covered all that, but I know what many of you are asking. With this big system hitting up north, what's the deal for Tamil Nadu? Well, our weather story is a little different. It's all about something called convective rain.
Right, so even though we're not in the direct line of fire from the depression, its presence out there is definitely going to stir things up for us, leading to a completely different type of rainfall.
See, since we're not getting a direct hit, our rain is going to be different. We're looking at convective thunderstorms. Think of them as pop-up storms, the kind fueled by the heat of the day and all the moisture in the air. This means the rain is going to be much more localized, more hit or miss. The best chance for these moderate to heavy downpours, that'll be in the southern districts and then up through the Delta region. Meanwhile, places like Chennai and the central areas will probably just see a lot of clouds and maybe some lighter showers.
All right, so that's the picture for today and tomorrow. But what about the next few days? Let's zoom out and look at the rest of the week.
Okay, so for the next 4 or 5 days, here's the interesting part. This depression up north is actually going to act like a vacuum, pulling moisture away from us. That means less rain for Tamil Nadu, more scattered showers. But, and this is a big but, don't get too comfortable with the dry weather. Once that system breaks apart, the models are all pointing to a return of that widespread rain we've been seeing for the past 10 days.
And yeah, you should know, this is not a one-and-done kind of thing. We are definitely in a pattern of back-to-back systems. There's already another typhoon forecast to spin up in the South China Sea, and we're expecting more circulations to pop up in the Bay of Bengal right on the heels of this one. It is a very, very active period out there.
And all of this brings us to one final, really big question. With these systems forming in the sea, one right after the other, relentlessly,
How is all this activity going to change the course of the monsoon itself this year? I mean, could it alter the bigger picture? That is something we're going to be watching very, very closely, so definitely stay tuned.